What up, and welcome back to another Malazan Book of the Fallen video. This time we're going to try something and risk potential channel suicide by trying to answer the question, what is Malazan Book of the Fallen all about? Let's get it. So if you watch BookTube, you probably saw that Mike's Book Reviews put out his video about starting his Gardens of the Moon / Malazan journey. And one of the things that he mentioned in there is that it's impossible to find just a good description of what Malazan Book of the Fallen is actually about. So we're going to try and answer that question here today with the caveat that I'm terrible with words and also don't know what I'm talking about.
Why am I doing this? Why am I here?
I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free and really just a straight up description of what the actual plot of the book is about, or the books. We want to keep it newbie friendly, obviously. But even as I sat down to try and make this video, I realized that it is just a hard question to answer. At its core, I think, it's a book, a series of books about the internal and external struggles of an empire. So you have an empire that's essentially set on world domination, and we jump into this series. The very prologue of the first book is we see that there's been this recent kind of power change, and there's a new empress at the top of this empire. And that's where you essentially dive in. And then the whole next 10 books is them dealing with both, I would call it their internal kind of political power dynamics as folks are kind of jockeying for position within the empire itself. And then you have the kind of conquest side, the world domination side. And so they're doing that both through direct, war and conquest, going to other continents, trying to take over their countries and subjugate their people, whatever.
Man, give me a fruit cocktail.
And then also through more like covert means, and are, they have their fingers in a lot of pies essentially. So they have the kind of overt, just blatant all out wars, and then they're kind of undermining other countries and have all these intelligence driven or covert side to the empire as well. The wild card in all of this, though, is that there's a whole pantheon of gods and magic, mages, cults and followers of those cults who are then practitioners of the magic associated with those gods.
I don't think I can do this anymore.
And in a way, it's kind of analogous to the kind of Greek gods, if you will, because they're all active and playing active roles. So they all have their own agenda. They're out there manipulating events and people and trying to move pieces around on the board. And so there's many layers where you have the kind of machinations of the empire and what they're trying to do in terms of conquering the world and controlling everything, right? And then all of the individual kind of human motivations within that, and people being diabolical and scheming and trying to get power within the empire. But then you have all these regular people that are having these kind of interactions or relationships with the gods and vice versa. And so there's, if you think about it as a Venn diagram, the empire side and, the whole pantheon and god stuff that's happening and cults and worship, there's a huge overlap in the middle there. And so what it does is it just, you're kind of trying to figure out what it all means and where it's going, all within the broad umbrella of this empire trying to expand itself and survive and things like that. And the wrinkle in all of that, which makes it even less straightforward, is that there's this god out there that is creating all sorts of problems for both humans and gods alike. And so you're kind of tracking all of these different moving parts and witnessing the interaction.
What do you say we cut the chit chat?
And so really, like, from the standpoint of a synopsis, we're really looking at the question of how this empire, which is going through its own internal shenanigans, deals with this kind of existential, catastrophic level global event that is, impacting the real world, impacting all of the magic users, and getting the, all of the gods involved in the mortal realm in a much more direct and significant way, maybe, than has been the case in the past. And this is all happening simultaneous to them trying to figure out who's in charge, what the goals are, what the direction forward is, and how to, achieve that ultimate goal of world domination. And then within that, I think, is where things start to get off the rails, because then you have all kinds of races and gods, and you can go watch my kind of like what to expect from Malazan, which kind of lays out all of the different subtleties. And there's that kind of long time aspect where we're looking at this over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, and there's all kinds of sub groups and plots and factions that all kind of get fleshed out within that.
I have no doubt there's a host of people involved, but forget all of that.
But I think for me, that's the kind of crux of what the story is all about. You have this empire, they're trying to expand while at the same time going through their own drama, and all happening within this kind of broader context of the Pantheon being upended by the introduction of this new god. So that was my attempt at doing like a 35-second elevator pitch on this. I know people want something that's really linear and straightforward, and like, yeah, there's a cursed ring and a group of heroes gets together to take care of it. But unfortunately, it's just really more nuance than this. It's told from the standpoint of it being a story. So it's like you're reading the history of the Malazan world. And so there's a huge kind of fourth wall component to it. But you're actually reading it as if it were a history. And so you're just jumping in, and it's kind of, here's where we're starting, and we're just going to take you through what happens. And so it's almost a kind of crazy question to even ask from that standpoint, right? Because how would you answer the question, what was the 1600s to the 1800s Britain about, right? It was about a lot of stuff. There was a lot of shenanigans happening in political dynamics and geopolitics and stuff like that. And so, in some ways, it's an unanswerable question, but that's how I would think about it, and that is my attempt at describing it in a non-spoilery way. If you want to know why you should read it, or what makes it so good and awesome, and what people are raving about, given that it's impossible to describe, go check out some of my other content. I've got some good stuff hopefully out there that will whet your appetite and get you motivated to jump in. I will thank Mike for his amazing video and the impetus for me to make this, but what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put this out there as a challenge. So for all of my other Malazan BookTubers, I'm looking at you, Andy, Philip, Graceless, Madness. I'm looking at you, Calor's Unfortunate. Let's get some videos out there and try and give folks who are on the fence an idea in a non-spoilery way of what this series is actually about. So we'll leave that one there. Like, subscribe, merch, Discord, Patreon, all that jazz. And until the next one, happy reading.